Welcome to the Deep Dive, where today we're all about cracking the code of business models. Imagine being able to see behind the curtain of any successful company. That's what we're going for.
That's right. We're diving into some excerpts from a business school course document called Unit 4 Business Models. Think of this deep dive as your cheat sheet to understanding what makes businesses tick.
Okay, so before we get lost in the jargon, let's answer the big question. What exactly is a business model? It's got to be more than just making money, right?
You're absolutely right. It's easy to think it's all about profit, but a business model is really the blueprint for how a company creates value both for its customers and itself. It's like finding that sweet spot where everyone wins.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
So it's a recipe for success, but like any good recipe, there are different ways to approach it.
Exactly. This course document highlights that there isn't one single definition of a business model everyone agrees on. But for our deep dive today, we'll focus on some of the most widely used frameworks. Think of these frameworks as different lenses for examining the same thing.
Okay, love a good framework. Lay it on me. What's the first one we're looking at?
The document calls them the Big Three. We'll start with the four-box model. This one keeps it simple by focusing on the core elements: the value proposition for the customer, the key resources and processes a company uses, and of course, how they make a profit.
Makes sense, but I'm guessing it gets more complex than that.
It does. Next up is the what, who, how, and why model. Now, this one gets into the nitty-gritty of the content, structure, governance, and overall value logic of a business.
Ooh, governance and value logic sounds intense. Can you break that down a bit more?
Sure thing. So what refers to the products or services a company offers? Who targets the customer segments they serve? How delves into their internal organization and processes? And finally, why gets to the heart of their value proposition and how it resonates with their target market. It's about connecting the dots between what they do and why it matters to their customers.
Okay, starting to see the bigger picture here. But this big three thing implies there's one more framework, right?
You know it. And this one's a biggie. The business model canvas, sometimes called the 9-box model. It's popular for a reason, and we'll get into all the details in a bit.
9 boxes. Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. It's like a treasure map to business success. What secrets do these boxes hold?
Well, each box represents a critical aspect of the business. Think of it like this. You've got your customer segments, who are you targeting? Your value propositions, what are you offering that's so special? Then we get into the operational side. Channels, how do you reach those customers, customer relationships, how do you keep them coming back for more? And of course, revenue streams, how does the money actually flow in?
Whoa, so many moving parts. I'm already starting to think about some of my favorite companies and how they'd fit into these boxes.
That's exactly what we want. And that's the beauty of the business model canvas. It provides a visual and structured way to break down even the most complex businesses.
This is already making a lot of sense. But before we dive deeper into the business model canvas, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about something called the CVP canvas. It's all about the customer, right?
Yeah, you got it. The CVP canvas, it really zeroes in on that customer value proposition. Like you said, it's all about understanding the customer's world.
Okay, color me intrigued. What makes this CVP canvas so special? Is it like a secret decoder ring for customer desires?
You could say that. Imagine it like this: the CVP canvas helps you build a crystal clear picture of your ideal customer. And it's not just about demographics, it's about understanding their needs, their frustrations, and what they ultimately want to achieve.
So we're talking about getting inside their heads, figuring out what makes them tick.
Exactly. The CVP canvas has two sides. On one side, you have the customer profile, where you map out things like their jobs to be done. What are the tasks or goals they're trying to accomplish? What pains or obstacles are they facing? And what are the gains or outcomes they desire?
Okay, starting to get the picture. So it's instead of just saying our target market is 25, 35-year-olds,
Yeah.
we're digging deeper into their motivations, right?
You got it. Now, on the flip side of the CVP canvas, you have the value map. This is where you showcase how your product or service directly addresses those customer needs and desires.
So it's like a matchmaking service, but for businesses and customers. You're finding that perfect match between what the customer wants and what your business offers.
Exactly. You list your products and services, highlight your pain relievers, how you specifically address the customer's problems, and detail your gain creators, how you help them achieve those desired outcomes.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense. I'm already starting to think about companies I interact with and how well they're actually fulfilling my needs. Like, take a food delivery app, for example. Their customer profile might include someone who's short on time, hates cooking, but wants a healthy, affordable meal.
Perfect example. Now, the app's value map would highlight how it solves those problems. They offer convenience and speed, a wide variety of cuisines, and maybe even have filters for dietary needs and price ranges.
Wow. When you break it down like that, it seems so simple. But I can see how powerful this framework could be for businesses.
Absolutely. The CVP canvas forces you to really understand your customers and ensure your offerings are hitting the mark. It's not enough to just have a cool product. You have to solve a real problem for someone.
It's all about providing real value, right? Okay, so we've got the four-box model, the what, who, how, and why framework, and the CVP Canvas. Plus, we briefly touched on the nine-box business model canvas earlier. But this document also mentioned something about different types of business models, right? It said there's like 55 different species out there.
It did. And that might seem overwhelming, but it just shows how diverse and creative the business world can be.
Hmm.
Think of these business model types as common patterns or blueprints that have been proven successful in different industries.
Like templates for success. Give me an example of one of these business model types in action.
Okay. Have you ever noticed how some companies make their money not from the initial product, but from everything that comes after?
Well, you're talking about that give away the razor, sell the blades strategy?
Exactly. That's a classic example of the razor and blades business model. Companies using this model offer a core product like a razor at a low cost or even for free to hook customers in. Then they generate recurring revenue from the necessary consumables that go with it, like replacement blades.
That's so clever. It's like a bait and switch.
Yeah.
But instead of tricking the customer, you're providing ongoing value.
Precisely. And it's not just razors. Think about printers and ink cartridges, coffee machines and coffee pods, even video game consoles and the games themselves. It's a model that's been around for ages and continues to be incredibly effective.
Mind blown.
No.
Okay, so that's one down, 54 more to go. But seriously, this just shows how important it is to understand these different business models.
Absolutely. And we don't have time to cover all 55 today, but remember that the goal isn't necessarily to memorize them all. It's about recognizing patterns and understanding the strategic thinking behind different approaches.
So it's like having a toolkit of business knowledge
Yeah.
that you can use to analyze any company or even come up with your own innovative ideas.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the business model canvas, which we touched on earlier. This framework is particularly useful because it can be applied to any business, regardless of its model type.
Okay, so it's like the Swiss Army knife of business model frameworks.
You could say that the business model canvas helps you visualize how all the pieces of a business fit together, from customer relationships and key activities to cost structure and revenue streams.
Okay, the business model canvas, our Swiss Army knife for understanding businesses. We know it has 9 boxes, each representing a different part of the business. But how do they all work together?
Imagine it like a puzzle where each piece connects to and influences the others. You start by identifying your customer segments, who you're trying to reach. Then you define your value propositions, what makes your offering special, and how it solves their specific needs.
So far, so good. We're basically creating a customer profile and matching it with our amazing product or service. What comes next?
Then you map out your channels, how you connect with your customers. Is it through a physical store, a website, social media, or a combination? This leads us to customer relationships, how you build and maintain those connections. Are you going for personalized experiences, community building, or automated interactions?
It's like we're building a business from the ground up, step by step. We've got our customers, our product, and now we're figuring out how to reach them and keep them engaged.
Exactly. And all of this needs to be financially viable, right? That's where the remaining boxes come in. Key activities are the crucial things you need to do to deliver on your value proposition. Resources are what you need to carry out those activities. Think finances, infrastructure, and even intellectual property.
Okay, so we're talking about the nuts and bolts of the operation, the things that make the business run smoothly.
Precisely. And finally, we get to revenue streams, how you actually make money. Is it through sales, subscriptions, advertising, or maybe a combination of different approaches?
This business model canvas is pretty comprehensive. I can see why it's so popular. But let's make this even more real for our listeners. Can we try applying it to a real company?
Absolutely. Let's take a company like Netflix. Their customer segments are people who love movies and TV shows, right? They offer a huge library of content, personalized recommendations, and a seamless streaming experience. Those are their value propositions.
And they reach their customers primarily through their app and website, their channels. They build customer relationships through personalized recommendations, curated lists, and even interactive content.
Exactly. Their key activities include content acquisition, platform development, and marketing. Their resources include their technology infrastructure, their massive content library, and of course, their talented team, and their revenue stream, primarily subscriptions with additional revenue potentially coming from partnerships or deals.
Wow, it's amazing to see how all these pieces fit together. I feel like I have a much clearer understanding of how Netflix operates as a business.
That's the power of the business model canvas. It helps you see the big picture and understand the interconnectedness of every aspect of a business.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of business models. We've explored different frameworks, dissected the business model canvas, and even looked at real-world examples.
We've covered a lot of ground, but remember, the learning doesn't stop here. The business world is constantly evolving with new models and approaches emerging all the time.
So what's our final takeaway for our listeners today?
Keep your curiosity alive. Pay attention to the businesses you interact with. Ask yourself, how do they create value? What's their business model? You might be surprised by what you discover.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one creating the next groundbreaking business model. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, happy analyzing.